I'm John Little of OmegaShock.com, and this is the Weekend ShockCast for Saturday, November 8th, 2014. Yesterday I was so caught up in the idea of rhythms and cycles that I didn't leave myself enough time for writing. So if you were wondering why there was no shock letter, that was one part of the reason. However, I also have a Bible class that I teach on Fridays, so that's the other part. Lord willing, I will be able to write about what I think about the rhythms and cycles that we see in history and talk about what those rhythms and cycles tell us about the future. Hopefully, bad news will take the week off so that we can talk about all that. So, what did we talk about this week? This week, we talked about a growing ecumenicism that is laying the foundation for the coming of the Antichrist. Then we talked about your vote in this year's midterm elections in the U.S. We talked about the results of that vote on Wednesday, and then I illustrated some of the dark activities of America's Saudi allies. So let's talk about that. On Monday, it was Truth is the New Extremism. Like you, I always thought that the Antichrist would be some really awful guy with a weird mustache, a loud voice, and a bad skin condition, a kind of blonde-haired Adolf Hitler. But I doubt that the AC, or the Antichrist, will be anywhere near that, except for the blonde hair. My bet is still on the Antichrist being a blonde. My other bet is on how good he is at smooth talking, shaking hands, and being just a regular, down-to-earth good guy. He'll be just really, really nice. Oh, and his message will be, why can't we all just get along? And those who can't seem to just get along will be killed. I am shocked at how easy it is for people to believe lies, and even to passionately support lies when they know the truth. It really is amazing. I saw this firsthand while living and traveling in the Middle East, and I see it everywhere as I watch the world from Taipei. It's getting worse, much worse. Part of the reason is good old-fashioned sin. We like being sinful because sin is fun. It feels good. It doesn't confine you with all those pesky rules. And since there are lots of people who like sin too, you will always have plenty of friends. Unfortunately, that is for those of us who like sin, there's something called truth. And truth is the opposite of all that. It's no fun. It makes you feel bad. It confines you with pesky rules, and there aren't many people who like truth, so you won't have many friends. Worse, truth goes around holding up a mirror in front of people, showing them what they are really like. No one likes that. In fact, if there was a law against it, everyone would be happy. Actually, there are laws against telling the truth. In fact, most places in the world have laws against the truth, now that I think about it. And when the Antichrist comes, he's going to free you from ever having to deal with pesky truth-tellers. You will never hear that you are sinful or unrighteous. You will never hear about a God that punishes sinners. In fact, the Antichrist will probably set up this awesome religion that talks about a wonderful old codger who thinks that getting along with everyone would be the best thing in the world, and that only pleasant people go to heaven. Only annoying people would go to hell, people like you and me. And the Antichrist would tell his followers to send all the annoying people to hell as soon as possible. Now, the Antichrist will be more than just a friendly chap with a good handshake. He will be exceptionally practical, which means that he won't invent a religion from nothing. That would take too much work and too much time. So he'll do it like it has always been done in the past. He'll borrow the best bits from all the popular religions and invite everyone to join hands and sing Kumbaya. In fact, they've been doing that since 1893, when they held the very first Parliament of the world's religions in Chicago. It never really caught on until the centennial meeting of this parliament, but since then major international cities have been hosting this religious parliament, and now it has come back home to the United States. I picked up this bit of news from the article titled, Salt Lake City, First U.S. City to Host Parliament of World Religions, and I caught the link on stevequayle.com. And my attention was riveted by this paragraph. Quote, America is the home base of the interfaith movement, and it's about time the parliament came back home. Parliament Chair Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid said in an announcement, close quote, America is the home base of the interfaith movement? Unfortunately, I think that I have to agree. It certainly is the home base for so much else that is evil. And how does this parliament of the world's religions work? By suppressing their differences, i.e. the truth, and upholding those areas that they have in common, i.e. lies. And you can bet that every one of their meetings will be full of peace, love, and understanding, or at least full of something. But that's not the only peace, love, and understanding movement out there. There's also this one, the United Religions Initiative. And you can find it at their website, uri.org. I love their cooperative circles. They're just so cooperative. Of course, not everyone is quite so cooperative with the peace, love, and understanding movement. Some people are just so extreme in their desire to hold on to what they believe to be the truth. And yes, there's an organization to help deal with that. It's called the Global Community Engagement and Resilience Fund, or the GCERF. In fact, they have a website. It's called www.gcerf.org. And its goals are to turn violent, radical religious people into something less violent, less radical, and presumably less religious. And you'll be pleased to know that it is an initiative that was proposed by the Obama administration. And it's currently backed by Europe, Australia, Canada, and Qatar. Oh, and the Tony Blair Faith Foundation. You didn't know that there was one of those, right? Oh yes, we are rolling right along towards a wonderful future full of peace, love, harmony, global tyranny, mass murder, and the Antichrist. Because everyone who disagrees will be killed. You'll just love it. You aren't one of those truth extremists, are you? On Tuesday, it was voting day. This is one of those days where the phrase damned if you do and damned if you don't applies. Those of you who still believe that it's important to vote will go to the ballot box and vote for somebody that you hope isn't an evil person of uncertain parentage. Unfortunately, most of the people on the ballot are complete people of uncertain parentage. So you are stuck with having to choose between the lesser of two weevils. Since I'm on the other side of the planet, I've avoided all that by convincing myself that my ballot never will be counted, which is true, and that my vote doesn't matter, which I'm not certain about. Many years ago, I had an opportunity to move up the ranks within the Republican Party in Indiana. I had been in the leadership of the College Republicans. I was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR. I'd sat in on some of those smoke-filled backroom meetings. Of course, I was just a 20-something kid that they were hoping to mold into a reflection of themselves. Ultimately, I wasn't interested. God had different plans for me and pulled me away from the clutches of the power-mongers. And as I sit here thinking back to those heady days where I sat at the very edges of power politics, I am thankful that God kept me away from all that. One of many things that God kept me away from. But the thing that I remember most about my brief experience with political power is that it is sick and twisted. And the higher up the food chain you go, the more sick and twisted it gets. They don't care about you. They just want your vote. I'm just amazed that they still need your vote. One day we might be able to sit down and analyze why the evil men and women in power needed our votes, but right now it's clear that they need us to support them. Why else would they work so hard to control the media? So if you're waiting for me to tell you that your vote doesn't count, you're going to wait a long time, because it does count. I just can't tell you why. So if you have a chance to vote today, go out and vote. But before you cast those precious votes, please take the time to pray and ask God for guidance. Read your Bible. Confess your sins before God. Have a spiritual frame of mind when you go into the voting booth. Make sure that you know each and every person that you are voting for and why. Your most important vote will be local. It will be your local politicians who will be the least corrupted. Your state congressmen and state senators will be far less corrupt than the ones that you send to Washington. Likewise for your mayor and sheriff. These local politicians might be the only bit of political power that stands between you and the slavering evil in Washington, D.C., although don't count on it. So please, pay close attention to these people. Are they good people with biblical values? Can you trust them? I know that the answer is probably not, but do the best that you can. America stands at the precipice of a dark future. Those who are chosen today will be the ones to lead us into it. May the Holy Spirit guide you. On Wednesday, it was the votes are in. Now what? Did anything really change yesterday? I don't know. I would like to think that a host of new faces in government from the Republican Party would make a difference, but I doubt it. Have the Republicans done anything to change the rampant corruption and evil at the heart of the U.S. government? We've only had a few men and women make any attempt at stemming the terrible tide of graft, dishonesty, double-dealing, misconduct, immorality, and general depravity. And those few voices were drowned out by their debauched colleagues before they too fell victim to the decadence of Washington, D.C. But I still wonder if something didn't happen yesterday. I think that some of us give too much credit to the New World Order elites and their Illuminati overlords. If they had as much power as many credit them with, they would be able to act out in the open instead of in the shadows behind closed doors. Yes, the elites are powerful, but it is the kind of power that sits in dark corners and whispers in the ear. It is a power of suggestion and influence, and it is a power that cannot stand up when the light is shined upon them. That's why they work with puppets, and rarely, if ever, does anyone see the hands that pull the strings. I myself went through quite a long time of doubt about the dark powers that work behind the stone facades of Washington, D.C. Yes, I knew that there was evil at work. No Christian can deny such a thing. But a grand conspiracy? It was nonsense to me. Well, it is nonsense no longer. Decades ago, my family had an acquaintance who rubbed shoulders with the wealthiest men in the world. If this friend wasn't Illuminati himself, he had dealings with them. And he said something that I've never forgotten. He said that the true rulers of this world are looking for someone to unite them. Then I have found his comment to be verified in the conflicts that the Illuminati appear to have amongst themselves. From the lowest ranks to the highest, the Illuminati appear to be in direct competition with each other. They kill each other off and weed each other out with complete regularity. Are we seeing evidence of this competition here? Do the Republicans represent a different arm of the global elites? I don't know. But there does appear to be a competition of some kind. We will see how the course of events unfold in the coming days, weeks, and months. I will certainly be watching how Barry Soetoro and his vile minions react to yesterday's events. Will he move more quickly? Will he slow down? Does it matter? I'm not sure. But I do know what matters most, what God is doing. God has a plan, and he is not going to allow Satan to get away with murder. The question is whether you are on board with his plan. Are you walking with God? On Thursday, it was U.S.-Saudi Muslim threat to Russia. Do you remember the good old days when all we had to worry about was the Saudis starting World War III during the Sochi Olympics? Yeah, those days. Just 9 months ago. Well, they're here again, but this time they sit on top of the U.S.-backed overthrow of Ukraine, the threat of Ebola from Africa, U.S.-trained ISIS rampaging through the Middle East, and a Saudi attack on Russian oil revenues. And how would the Saudis have started World War III at the Sochi Olympics? By convincing Chechen rebels to stage a terrorist attack on the Sochi Olympics. And it was something that Prince Bandar bin Sultan, head of Saudi intelligence, threatened to do. And he's back. I asked yesterday if anything would change now that the Republicans hold both the House and the Senate. Well, I can say that one thing certainly won't change. War. That will continue. After all, it's one thing that both the Democrats and Republicans can agree on completely. One other thing that will continue is Saudi involvement in the wars that the U.S. is participating in. In fact, it's hard to dig around in the shadows of American war politics without stumbling over Saudi intelligence, also called the Al-Mukhabarat al-A'ma. I always wondered why so many people claimed that Mossad was everywhere, especially since it's a tiny organization. Could it be that Saudi agents are trained to claim that they are Israeli? Hey, I would do that if I was a Saudi agent in pro-Israel territory. Americans can't tell a Saudi from an Israeli anyway. But back to the politics of war. Early this year, Saudi intelligence service involvement had gotten so obvious and so awful that the Saudi king had to publicly remove the head of Saudi intelligence, Prince Bandar bin Sultan. But when John Kerry went to the Saudi king to beg for Saudi involvement in the U.S. air campaign against ISIS, want to guess who was there? Right, our boy Bandar. And I saw something yesterday that had Prince Bandar's fingerprints all over it. It was an article titled, "Western Security Services May Be Turning IS Militants on Russia." Ex-intelligence officer. And there's a link in the article to the article. I picked that up from Steve Quayle's website, and I wasn't surprised by what I read. My only real surprise was that the writer wasn't blaming the hands that pull the strings behind America's war policy. Saudi Arabia is the reason why ISIS has been so successful. They provided the money, the training, and the weapons, and they also provided an experienced cadre of Chechen fighters to create the backbone for ISIS operations. The Chechen rebels are the most brutal and sadistic fighters in the world, and when I heard that they were involved with ISIS, I knew who and what was involved. The Saudis hate the Russians and have been a thorn in their side for decades. The Saudis are responsible for all of the trouble that the Russians have had with the Chechen rebels, and they weren't afraid to admit it. I don't think that it was a mystery to the Russians either, but I was certainly surprised to hear that Prince Bandar waved that information about like a red flag in front of ex-KGB Colonel Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. But let's not forget something else that's happening. Did you notice that the price of crude oil has dropped rather dramatically? Did you notice who instigated that drop? Right, Saudi Arabia. Many have speculated that the Saudis did that to shut down the shale oil boom in the U.S., and Saudi efforts will have certainly hastened the demise of domestic U.S. oil production. But the Saudis can read a balance sheet like anyone else, and they could certainly tell that the shale oil and gas boom was doomed from the start, so they didn't need to kill what was already dying. No, they had bigger fish to fry, like Russia. Here's a bit of evidence if you need some. It's an article titled, "Oil Slump Leaves Russia Even Weaker Than Decaying Soviet Union." I have a link to that article in my article. Here's a quote from that article. Quote, "Russian ex-premier Yegor Gaidar famously dated the moment to September 1985 when Saudi Arabia stopped trying to defend the crude market, cranking up output instead. The Soviet Union lost $20 billion per year, money without which the country simply could not survive," he wrote. Close quote. Among other things, it was the Saudi decision to reduce the price of oil that finally did in the USSR, and the Saudis are hoping to do the same to Russia. I find it very convenient that the Saudis chose this moment in time to spearhead a fall in the price of oil. Oh, and did you notice all the news about those textbooks that teach Islam to kids? Did you know who produces those textbooks? That's right, Saudi Arabia. They hand them out for free to cash-strapped American public schools, which is all of them. There's an article titled, "Angry Pushback Against Islam in Public School Textbooks Continues to Take the Country by Storm." I'll link that article in mine. The point is that the smell of war is in the air, and it's a rotten, evil thing, and the people at the center of it are the global elites and Saudi Arabia. I truly hope that you'll be ready for everything we talked about this week. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on, and are punished. Proverbs 22:3. This has been the Weekend ShockCast for Saturday, November 8th, 2014. I'm John Little of OmegaShock.com, and I hope you have a good weekend.